Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the 140th session of the online Optom learning series. Before I take the privilege to introduce our speaker for today, today happens to be the 75th Independence Day for India. So I would like to take this opportunity again to wish all the Indians a very happy Independence Day. So for today's session, we have with us Professor Paul Allen Harris. He is a 1979 graduate of the State University of New York, State College of Optometry, and who since September 2010 is a professor at the Surgeon College of Optometry. He loves lecturing. Didactically, he teaches amblyopia and strabismus, and electively, where he teaches about autism, sports vision, and his special interests are working with patients with ABI and TBI. Clinically, he is involved in vision therapy, vision rehabilitation, and hospital-based care for ABI and TBI patients. Also very much involved in pediatrics and electrodiagnostics. He is also actively involved in research, working on new ways to measure visual performances with innovative measures of visual acuity, contrast sensitivity, glare disability, and visual field. Also very much interested, I think, in color vision, which is a very important part, I guess, in patients with TBI, ABI, migraine, seizures, and a lot of other conditions. He likes to know what's happening in the visual system. Basically, that's his interest. In the year 1991, he founded the Academy for Behavioral Optometry, which is BABO, short form, and to expand his knowledge about the quality and quantity of behavioral optometry care, which is also available to the public. These courses are now part of the OEPF's educational base and are known as the clinical curriculum, which provides hands-on small group postgraduate clinical education in the field of behavioral vision care. And over the years, over 1,500 optometrists and vision therapy in the US and abroad have taken part in these courses. And today, Professor Paul is going to talk to us. I think it's a very interesting topic, which is not quietly well covered in the optometry curriculum as a whole subject in most parts of the world, which is sports vision. And he'll be taking us through his expertise about sports vision. So welcome, Prof, onto our platform. And, let me just leave the screen time to you.
Thank you, Fakhruddin, and thank you for the nice introduction. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you all today with the online optometry learning series. 140 events, that's actually, you should pat yourselves on the back. That's absolutely fantastic for providing that kind of education to the people in your region. And I just think it's fantastic. And 75 years of independence for India, that's absolutely fantastic. Congratulations on that. And I hope you had a wonderful day. I know you're at the end of your day. Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, I got a bunch of stuff there. I think the thing to let you know, I'm a professor at Southern College of Optometry. I love being at a school. I know we have 21% of you, or at least when we did the poll, are students. So welcome, students. I would say, actually, back to Fakhruddin, actually, we have 100% students because I consider myself a student of optometry as well. I think we're all constantly learning with what we do. I'm a fellow in a number of organizations, COVD. To me, I think one of the most fun ones has been ACBO, the Australasian College of Behavioral Optometry, and I've been a fellow in that since 1994, when we came over for the second International Congress of Behavioral Optometry held in Sydney. So let's again get to the topic of the day. Sports vision. It's an interesting topic to me. I'm very involved in sports vision, not sport. If you took a look at me and what I did, my body and that kind of stuff, not the body of an athlete. Though I had fun playing at lots of sports, not great at any one of them. But first of all, if we back up, in the introduction, Fakhrudin mentioned the Baltimore Academy for Behavioral Optometry and the OEP clinical curriculum. We have a series of education courses to help take somebody from where many of you are to really being able to provide these other services at a very, very high level. And initially, we did not have any course on sports vision. And people would ask, oh, we need a course on sports vision. And I would think and think and think and go, but you already have pretty much all of the tools that are necessary to help an athlete become a superstar. But people wanted it to be tailored to the sports thing. So we eventually decided, let's do the education specifically focused on sports. So here's the key statement. Sports performance or performance in a sport most often is simply a direct reflection of a person's visual abilities. If you think of it as a sport was built to be a sport, a lot of it, or a lot of the competitive edge, even in things like lifting weights or running a distance or swimming, is a test of our visual abilities. Now, I know part of the world I'm speaking to today, sports like cricket, very, very important. Different parts of the world have different sports that we pay a lot of attention to. And you think of the design of the wickets, the exact length of the pitch, the exact size and weight of the ball, the rules in terms of the run-up on the pitch, and the equipment, the size of the bat, tiny, tiny little changes in any aspect of that, and you completely tilt how the sport is played and works. It's just such a fascinating thing to me to watch pretty much every sport and say, aha, how has this evolved as a test of human visual performance? So on the surface, sports appears to be a test of who's faster, quicker, more agile, or more physically well endowed. But the difference between the superstar and the average athlete in nearly every case is the difference in their visual abilities, not the difference in some physical attributes. Now, I mentioned earlier that I don't have the body of a... So you do have to have the genetics. But if you take people with that and you put them all in the same space, if you will, the difference of those who rise above often is the difference in their visual abilities. So let's work on through that. We say things like, what does it mean to have good hands? Now, obviously, there's certain sports like soccer or as most of the rest of the world calls football, not this kind of football you see here. But what does it mean to have good hands? Hands are hands. Hands are simply an instrument that we use to do the things that we do in sport. Yeah, here's a wide receiver, Odell Beckham of the New York Giants. He's not there anymore. It's an older picture, but making a catch with one hand, a spectacular catch. But it is his visual system that knew exactly when the ball would be, where the ball was going to go, so that he could use that hand to stop its flight and secure it to his body to make the catch and score the touchdown. We also have a phrase in the States. I don't know if you call it a game of centimeters or a game of millimeters, but we call it a game of inches. And most sports are that way. I'm thinking of baseball. I'm the consultant to a Major League Baseball team, the Baltimore Orioles now. I almost wore their shirt, but I thought it was better to promo Southern College of Optometry. But what does it mean to be a game of inches? Well, if you can mentally picture a baseball field, the difference between when a ball is hit by a bat and the trajectory, the tiniest little difference between when the ball hits it and the amount of spin it induces, how far it goes, that tiniest little bit of difference is a routine fly ball that's an out versus a home run, versus we call it a frozen rope or a line drive that hits the ground and keeps the game going in a positive way for the offense. So I think about the design of the physical space that whatever the game is that's played in the court. I think of basketball, the exact size of the basket, the exact size of the ball. Most people don't realize 2 basketballs can go down at the same time. But when you're standing there on the ground looking up, it looks small and the ball looks huge and you wonder how you'll ever get it in. So space and having that kind of perception, what does it mean? I think I'm giving you a sense of that. And one of the biggest things I think we in optometry can work with, because you might even think, okay, come on, give me a break. Swimmers, can you have any input with swimming? That's just power, get in the water and go. You don't need vision. But I think of our use of guided imagery, visualization, visual imagery, mentally having a sense of how to get that perfect start, how to know exactly where you are in the water to begin the flip turn, to know whether you take one more stroke or to glide in and try to touch that wall just at the right moment. So that kind of imagery, that kind of sense where I am mentally, the wall, pulling it in, pulling it in, pulling it in, and getting to it more quickly, absolutely critical in the way things go. And those are ways that we can help the athlete be better. So Dr. Bruce Wolfe said, and many of you know Wolf Wands, and Bruce was actually a colleague of mine and a mentor. Bruce said, most visual problems are problems of omission, not commission. Now, what did he mean? Highfalutin words, big words. Most visual problems are problems of omission. Somebody's out there in the heat of the moment in a sport. Lots of things are going on. People are moving, things are happening. And the person, most of the errors are something was there that could have been seen, but it wasn't. So the pass was made and intercepted. The ball was kicked and intercepted. Maybe at cricket, the ball was put into play. The runners decided it's safe. They start to run, but they never saw that there was a person ready to snatch that ball and get it back in before they had completed their run. And a turn at bat was now over. That's devastating if that person was just getting started and you expected them to be at bat for a long time. So most problems are problems of omission, and that's part of our visual process. What happens when we get under stress? Under stress, we begin to look hard, most people do, and they see less. They're less aware of things, and it's a kind of tunnel vision. Not the kind you would ever find on a standard visual field test. It's at the moment what they are attending to. So that those kinds of problems are absolutely critical in things. So most problems that we see, the next time you watch your favorite sport. Just watch. When there's a goal, when there's a score, when somebody makes a mistake, it's usually because it was a visual problem that was going on. Now, what's meant by the last two words? Not commission. What Bruce was basically saying is people don't make errors because they have too much information. If we have more information flowing in that is usable, that we can attend to, and we do it with ease, and we open up our visual attention, so we have more coming in, we'll make better decisions, we'll be more accurate in what we do. If I'm going to work with a basketball player shooting free throws, I don't want them just to look at the rim. I want them to be aware of the entire court, to get the horizontalness of the floor, to see the vertical lines around, to get a sense of the whole thing holding the rim, and just gaze easy. And I want them looking the entire time that they're looking, and then whoosh, and mentally picture it go through. So our goal is to help the player learn to take in more information simultaneously, to process it more quickly, and to make better decisions. They will make better decisions based on having more information and processing it faster. And I almost don't like the better decisions, because most sport, if a person is really doing it well, what's happening is you're seeing them perform almost at a reflex level based on thousands of hours of practice doing things. So who can we as optometrists help? I've got a list here. First of all, variable performance. If you have an athlete that's out there that sometimes they're like, wow, flashes of brilliance, but other times they're not doing very well, that's absolutely a person that we can help, because I think of taking these lower performances, raising them up, and helping more and more of their performances be solid and good. Somebody who performs worse under stress. That's a kind of person. I talked with coaches often. Oh yeah, in practice, they're great. If the team is way behind or way ahead, I'm thinking basketball now, ahead or behind by 20 points, there's not much stress on the players. And they perform great, but it's a close game. It's coming to the end of the game, and they can't, they're just not performing. Again, does well when little is on the line, knows what to do, but doesn't execute. I remember very early on in my career, I was working with Towson University and their basketball team, and was working with a young basketball player. He was amazing. He could jump from a standstill, and his feet would go more than a meter above the ground, right at about a meter. And it's like he's got what they call hops, and he was already over 2 meters tall. And but on the court, as things were happening, he was mentally trying to figure out, well, I could do this and I could do this. And he was almost like too smart. And it's like, you need to just react. And I actually worked with him on the court. We set up specific drills so that he could learn to simply, it's like the Nike swoosh thing. Just do it. Don't think about it. Don't make a decision. Execute what you need to do. Somebody who a coach says they practice great but performs poorly, I want to work with them. Somebody who's thinking too much, they're not on automatic pilot. Those are people we want to work with. So, sports vision now and the future. Qualitative testing are things that we really do want to look at. Right now, it's very interesting with the baseball team I'm working with, the Baltimore Orioles, and they're going through a very, very difficult time because of prior administration not investing in talent. So we're very talent poor right now going through, but we're developing very nicely. But they were fixated for a long time just on visual acuity. And how do we get the best visual acuity? And it's like there's a lot more to using the visual process, to hitting a baseball, to throwing a baseball, to doing the things you need to in the game that is not measured by some of the things that we're looking at. So find just noticeable differences. When I work with a pitcher in baseball, where are you throwing to? And they'll say, well, the glove of the catcher. Or basketball, where are you shooting? Well, I'm shooting at the basket. It's like, are you crazy? You need to be looking at a tiny little spot so that if you miss by 2 complete spots of what you're looking at, you're still inside your target. I don't want the basketball to just go through. I want it to go through the exact center of the cylinder. So there's half a basketball, front, back, side, side, when that ball goes through. I don't want it hitting anything. And if you're off by even a centimeter right or left, we need to work on that. I want you to see the center. I want it just to go whoosh. I want the net to go flip up through. I just love that. To hear the ball go through the net cords and have the net cords come up, flip, and down. The baseball, I want them, I might take not even that size, but a little tiny sticker in the center of the glove of the catcher. That's your target, not the glove, the little tiny square centimeter in the middle of the glove. That's where I want you to look at. Maybe the cricket bowler. Where is your target? And I'm sure, although I've never actually thrown or tossed the ball, I've been on a cricket pitch, but the idea, probably very much like bowling, you have a target, and the target is out on the ground where you want it to hit. And based on your experience, you know how you're throwing with the speed, with the spin, from that point where it should intercept. Now, that's not just some general place on the ground. It's at a very, very specific place. So just noticeable differences. Spatial judgments. Almost everything, not everything, but almost everything in sport is judging space. I remember, Anna, I know you're on from Greece. I had an opportunity one time when I was in Athens. This was many years ago. I won't know the name. Maybe you could type for me the name if you remember. But he was a Greek gymnast. And this was when the games had been in Greece. Greek gymnast who won one of the first gold medals for Greece in gymnastics in a very long time, or maybe forever. And this was after the Olympics, and it was interesting. I was there teaching a course. He happened to be a patient in the practice, and they asked me to meet with him. And he had a big decision to make. He said, I have keratoconus, and it distorts my spatial judgments. Very much like we think of, I think of this year, Simone Biles, who came out of those things because she had the twisties, right? Her vestibular apparatus had gotten messed up, and who knows if it was benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, maybe she needed an Epley maneuver, something, but she was afraid. And this gentleman told me the same thing. He said, I cannot judge space. So I am totally dependent on my coach. When I do the vault, running at full speed, and you watch them and they hit that springboard and tumbling in the air, and then have to hit the horse, continue the tumble, and then land. If you could imagine that he said, I can't see where I'm going. I cannot judge the space. I am totally dependent on my coach saying, here exactly is where you start, and run as fast as you can and do your thing. If you could imagine not seeing that. And his question to me was, they're talking about the next Olympics. I know that every time I do a vault could be the last time I ever do anything because it is so, so dangerous. We had a heart-to-heart discussion. I did not give him a specific answer, but there were a lot of things discussed that day, and it was a very interesting thing. So spatial judgments. And Stanley, you're absolutely right. Stephen Curry in the NBA has keratoconus. I think he's very, 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 very early, and I think people have actually made a little too much about it. But you're right, he does have keratoconus, and he's an amazing three-point shooter. And thank you, Anna, for the name of the person that I had a wonderful opportunity to meet with and spend an hour or so with. So these are some of the things that we look at. Dynamic conditions. We do far too much of our testing with the person seated with a gadget in front or targets in front, but we need to be looking at dynamic conditions, changing postures. And again, probing visualization, visual imagery, that kind of thing becomes critical. It's also important to know the sport. And if you don't know the sport, allow the people involved in the sport to educate you. I remember when I was brought in to work with the Norwegian biathlon team, and biathlon, skiing and shooting. And I was like, okay, don't know much about either, but they educated me. And the very, very interesting thing to me was they had brought me in specifically to help with the shooting part. And one of the women that we worked with, the female biathletes, said, "Doc, don't sell yourself short. After we did the vision therapy with you, we were able to attack the snow better in the skiing portion because we could see all of the little subtle things in the snow." So how do we do this? By sample testing sequence, an extended case history. I really sit and talk to try to find out what are the relative weaknesses and the strengths of the person. I do a full standard analytical exam. Yes, I do base in, base outs, my phorias, my PRA, NRA, my FCC. All of it is absolutely critical for me to help understand what's going on with this person. I like to do the Brock string. We'll talk a little bit about it, but the Brock string with the beads. Look here, tell me where is the string meeting. If the string is not meeting directly where they're supposed to be looking, that is going to be set the stage for a performance problem. And you'll see in a moment we have this. I do the space board, I do kistoscopic things, reaction time. We're going to do a saccadic test. I use both the ReadAlyzer, and now we've been using far more the right eye. Major League Baseball is using that to evaluate pretty much every one of the players before they're drafted. We use it with the Orioles. I've tested 280, 260 each year now for the past few years during spring training. And I have a really good idea of what I should be looking for in pitchers and catchers and what I should be looking for in position players that give me a sense of the visual attributes that set the stage for stardom. So here is us doing a Brock string. And I think, I know we have some students here, but the basic idea on the Brock string, you have a string with beads. This is a volleyball player. I'll get to that in a moment. So here's the Brock string. This is Dr. Zarn, one of my colleagues. This is one of our students. It's actually the head athletic trainer for University of Memphis. We were doing the evaluation. He's asking her to look at the green bead. So is Dr. Zarn. And basically the question is, what do you see? Now, if somebody's only paying attention out of one side, they're suppressing an eye, they may see only one string. Most of us see two strings, one coming from the right, which is actually seen by the left eye, one coming from the left, which is actually seen by the right eye, and we should see it crossing or touching at what we're looking at. Now, if she says, well, I see it meeting now where I have the laser pointer, we know what's going to happen is in performance, she's going to see the object closer to her than it really is. So in volleyball, it means she will start the spike earlier, and instead of hitting it further out, may actually hit it into the top of the net or into the netting, and that's no good. And if a person sees it meeting behind, that means they're going to be late in what they do because they think the object is further away from them than it really is. What we want and what we're going to work for in our vision therapy is to get a perfect match between at any of these points where the person is looking and where they see the strings cross. And we do it in different positions of gaze. Now, this is a space board. I had something to do with the development of it. This is an Italian version of the space board, no disclosure, meaning I don't get anything from it if you find and purchase these. But the basic idea is we have paper underneath. These are the targets. And as we do this, we get a recording here. And I built these in the beginning simply to help me have a better understanding of space, how a person saw what they did and what they did. So I want you to take a quick look at this. This point right here where I have the laser pointer matches most closely to our 40 centimeter on the midline point. If you notice here, Bruce Wolfe always talked about this. He said, Paul, if all you look at are forias, you'll be correct in the direction of shift 50% of the time, meaning might as well be a pure guess. And he said the shifts in space are nonlinear. What you can see is in this side of space, the person's judgment, that's their little mark, and the spot would have been right here, is further away and further out in space. But this side, they're pulled in. So for this person, one side of space is out, one side of space is in. So let's imagine this is a football player bringing the ball up and going to make a pass to the winger out on the left side. So if they make the pass here, they're going to imagine the player's further away. They're going to kick it a little too far and it rolls out of bounds. The person's running as hard as they can and they never get there. On this side, they look to the right, they make the pass over there, and what happens? The person's running full and the pass is not far enough. They have to slow down. Maybe they stop the ball from going out of bounds, but it gives time for the defense to set up in front of that player. Had the ball been placed out right where it should be, they would have potentially had that breakaway and been able to make that centering pass from there. So if all you had was the information from this point, you might say, well, spatially things look okay. But until you do a test like this, you really have no idea what's going on with this. So I like to do reaction time testing. And one of the things that we do is use the Vision Builder reaction time. Don't let the moose die. Just sort of show you this quick little video here. And there is no sound here, so don't worry about it. The balls will start down. You hit the space bar before. You can see the time here, 233 milliseconds, 250. I think there he lets the, we'll go ahead. I'm going to stop that there. What we do with our players is we need to get 10 absolutely perfect, meaning no dead, they're moose down here. No, it's written by a Norwegian, so just have fun with why you put a moose down there. But no dead moose, and we get the time for each one, but the average time here. The best I've ever seen was the starting quarterback for the Memphis Tigers, and 0.194 was the reaction time on this. Absolutely amazing. We do this on all of our players as we go through. Another test, this is using the ReadAlyzer. You can use just about any eye movement recording device. But what we do here, these are two of our optometry school students. And if you see, I have, I'll go back to the laser pointer. This just to give you an idea of some of the performance stuff. We have a target over here and a target over here. Eventually, Bear, he liked to be called Bear, he's going to get out of the way. And we have the person do for 20 seconds saccades back and forth and back and forth. And we're going to count how many times they go back and forth in that 20 seconds. And these are some of the kinds of numbers that we get. We saw our volleyball team averaged 49, men's soccer 52. You see them all about the same. You get some that are pretty quick, and these are their slowest times. In 2017, this is Christian Brothers University. These were Rhodes College teams. They averaged 52. This was 182 players from all different kinds of sports. We had somebody give us 82 back and forths. I remember the optometrist A.J. Kirshner from Montreal, basically talking about the ability to voluntarily drive saccades back and forth as a measure of the quickness, if you will, of the visual system in terms of being able to react to things. So just want to give you a sense of how we're using some of that. Again, as this is a sample course, I actually have a 3-day course on sports vision that Dr. Jeff Heddle from the US and I do. And we'll be looking to put that on at some point if you want a lot more of this in detail. So let's shift to some of the things we look at in terms of actually treating problems and doing therapy. I see the questions coming in, but I also realize I'm at slide 14 of 32. So I'm going to cook for a little while, and I'm fine with staying on a little after to answer questions. But special considerations during the season. During the season, they're in competition. I feel it's critical. We have the phrase, the straw that breaks the camel's back. Find that. What's the thing right now that's causing the person the most trouble? Fix it. That'll help you gain the confidence of the athlete. When the season is over, then you can bring them in. It's after the season is the time to tear down, get the fundamentals, and rebuild something. So I think it's critical during the season to just be positive, supportive, and find small things that you can do that will make a big difference. Create a positive mental image and help them drill that over and over. Some of the baseball players I've worked with, when they go into a slump, they're overthinking. And I need to get them out of the internal talking and back into enjoying how it feels or felt when they simply were see the ball, hit the ball, and doing it that way. So I want to give them something to occupy the voice in the head. They step up to the free throw line, or they step up to do a penalty kick in soccer, football. I don't want them, well, last time I went left, so this time I'm going to go right, and I'm going to, but maybe the goalie thinks I'm going to go right. Just the gorgeous feel of kicking that ball in. Go back to that, run it, see it hit the net, see it get in the net, see it go through, and then just get up there and power it through. Make it happen what you just pictured in your mind. And more often than not, what you picture in your mind will happen. Sometimes I'm going to do posture changes. In baseball, we'll change the batting stance slightly. And all of a sudden, the Brock string that was meeting closer or further is now meeting in the correct place. Using a change in a stance to bring about a visual spatial change might be helpful for a few days, but it's not a long-term fix. The only long-term fix is going to be vision therapy and visual training. I want to help them develop a routine on deck, at the free throw line, before they serve, maybe while they're just before they throw the pitch, their routine before they step in to take the bat, during a break before the rugby match, et cetera, et cetera. And then I want to get with the rest of our regular vision therapy program. So let me give you some idea of some specific activities that I use for baseball. We're showing some of the Synaptec and the Nike goggles, those kinds of things, the our strobe type glasses. That can help. You do things with a moving ball where they're seeing less information and have to predict based on that. If they learn to look soft and do predictions, when you take the goggles off, it's like, wow, the ball looks like it's slowed down and it's larger, which is a perceptual thing that gives them a sense of what they're doing. This saccade to a release point works with hitting a baseball, but it also works with receiving a serve in tennis. I have the baseball player look at the torso of the pitcher, and I want them to get their eyes to jump to the release point at the exact moment the hand and ball are going to separate. I don't want them looking in this area of space for too long. Their accommodation, their vergence it'll move, but if they're looking at the player, they jump and they get there, they're ready to follow that ball in and work with it. And it takes practice to learn how to do that. And visualization, visual imagery, every aspect of offense and defense needs to be mentally rehearsed. Now, I want to go through very quickly, again, hitting a baseball as a player. I had a chance to work with, he just retired from baseball. Oops, laser pointer, there we are. So every human movement has a time delay of about 200 milliseconds. I think this stuff is pretty interesting, 200 milliseconds, but humans can overcome this time delay. How long did it take a 90-mile-an-hour fastball to go from the hand to across the hitting zone and to come right in this area? And it turns out it's 0.4 of a second. Well, the fastest you can react is about 0.2 seconds. Can you actually do all of this movement? So it takes 0.2 to react. It takes 0.24 from the moment you decide to actually go through with a swing for the bat to come through this area. You can't possibly hit a baseball if you're waiting to make a decision based on, so you have to anticipate. You overcome this by tracking predictable targets. You can do it with zero delay, but you have to have a smooth waveform. It's got to be predictable, and you have to have these various frequencies in acceleration and deceleration. So you can actually learn a zero latency tracking based on your history. And a good batter doesn't actually track the ball in. What does a good batter do? And what does a good receiver of serve do? Same kind of thing. Watch the torso, jump to this hitting zone at the exact moment the racket is going to hit the ball. They can read from the body, the curvature, the shoulder position, all of this based on the experience. This configuration is going to only hit the ball in one place. So if the person can learn to read all that, they already have an advantage in terms of being able to move to the right place to do the right thing. So this is part of what the imagery and this type of thing we're doing and should work with. So here's a little thing in defense. This was a wonderful picture, actually. Basketball defense, where should you look? And this man is looking in the perfect place. You look at the center of the torso. Okay. People thought, oh, I'll watch the eyes. Oh, no, I'll watch the ball bouncing up and down. If I follow the ball, I'll be able to steal the ball. And it's like, nope. You look at the center of the torso. If this offense player is going to go this way or this way, the turn of the torso is the thing that's going to tell you. They can head fake, they can fake you with their eyes, but finally that body is going to turn one way or another. And same kind of thing, if you're defending two players, you shouldn't be going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. You look in the middle and you look soft. And they can't tell where you're looking because you're just looking at the whole space. And that's a better chance for being able to make the steal and intercept the pass as it comes through. So we had a couple of questions come in, and I see them, and they're a little bit about concussion in sport and rehab. And I just wanted to make a point here, too, that this is a huge part, really a huge part of what we do in working with our athletes is dealing with the concussion and whiplash. And I'm showing ice hockey players here. I'm actually the optometrist who consults with the National Hockey League Players Association. If we have a player who's been involved in a collision and in their local area, they're not getting better, and the team and the league think maybe their career's over, I'm generally the person that will see those players. And I've had 14 of them sent to me over the last 12 years or so. 13 out of 14 have gone back to playing in the National Hockey League, and 5 of them had career seasons, their best season ever, coming back from a concussion they thought was career ending after they did their vision therapy. So I just want you to know that we can be instrumental in helping players get back in. Concussion, you've heard about the coup and contra coup. It's the brain hitting the inside of the skull that really causes the injury. We tend to see the bloodied or the knot that comes up on the skull itself. But what most people don't realize, I know you realize, it's the brain moving inside the skull that is the problem. And here's one point of impact, the other point of impact with your coup and contra coup. But what I'm finding with my hockey players is they may have a concussion and everybody, oh, put them in concussion protocol, blah, 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 blah. 6 months later, 8 months later, they're fine from the concussion. But at the same time, they went through all of this, they also had a whiplash injury. And if you look at the cervical ganglion, C1, C2, C3, C4, you look at in this area, we have afferent sensory fibers from there that help us know where our head is on our torso. That's very critical for coordinating the base for eye movements in space. And often it is the long-term effects of the whiplash injury that are more important than the proximal, the concussion that occurred. And yes, we do a lot of work with patients with concussion, but that's mostly relatively soon after they've had the problem. Often what we're dealing with is long-term compensation for a whiplash injury. So this is just a little bit of information on this. It says injury on ice feels like a car accident. Sports therapists say that hockey players who suffer from head and neck injuries, including whiplash after a collision on the ice, they need the same medical attention as somebody who's just been in a car accident. They can be going up to 40 kilometers an hour when they're skating and as high as 24 kilometers an hour when they're just sliding on the ice. The impact of colliding with another player, hitting the boards, or falling down and hitting the ice, very much like a low-speed road traffic accident. So let me give you a quick story of actually working with a player. Brian Pothier played for the Washington Capitals. He was a defenseman. and somebody I had a wonderful time working with. He hadn't played in 14 months. He was after his fourth recorded concussion, meaning he probably had more. He came in with guarded movements. He wouldn't move his head. He wouldn't move his eyes. That's not Brian down there. Brian is over here. And couldn't be in open spaces. He couldn't tolerate fluorescent lights, motion sickness, lots of difficulties. And 14 months later, he thought his career was over. I only did 6 vision therapy sessions with him. After the second one, I did them myself one-on-one. They were a little bit longer sessions than normal because he was driving quite a ways to get to me. After the second session, he said, could I start conditioning again? This is a person, if he rode a bike and got his heart rate up to 100 beats a minute, he was jello. He had to just lay down on the ground or on a couch for a day. After 4 sessions, he got clearance to skate again. He could be in the open space. He didn't have trouble with the flicker. Played his first game, played 14 games, and then scored his first goal, and played in the actual playoffs, and the team did very, very well at that point. You don't need to see this little video where he actually gets a goal in his game after coming back. So time-wise here, I just want to come to our conclusion. The difference between a superstar and the average athlete is the difference in their visual abilities. By improving their visual abilities, we can improve their athletic performance. I want to give you some resources. First one here is the International Sports Vision Association, ISVA. It's a relatively new organization. You'll have their, you can just look up ISVA, and it came right up. But here is their web address. Wonderful organization, relatively new, fantastic conferences, and I'm pretty sure you can get access to prior recordings of meetings. There's some really, really good stuff there. For those of you that are European-based, and I know, Anna, you're here. I don't know how many others are also in the European time zone. The European Academy of Sports Vision, Vittorio Roncalli out of Italy, wonderful, wonderful organization. They are still alive, still going after 30 years. And this is where you can contact them. And for the people in Asia, Asia Minor, this whole area, Malaysia, India, Australia, etc., Hong Kong, ACPO, the Australasian College of Behavioral Optometry, is a wonderful resource for you. I'm going to get to your questions now. I'll leave this up for just a moment. I want you to feel free to send me emails with your questions. So, do we consider evaluating eye-hand coordination for sports vision? And if yes, is it quantified by the SANET Vision Integrator software? First of all, the SANET Vision Integrator stuff is really wonderful. It is something we use in our vision therapy. I have not found using it for testing to be that helpful. The main reason is still, even with the new improved touch screen, there's a time delay between an event when you touch and when it registers. I think they're getting better. I had one of the older original SANET Vision Integrators, and the time lags were horrible to the point that we actually did not use it in any of our vision therapy. But once we got the newer physical setup with better time delays and the touch sensitivity, we certainly do use it. That game that's part of Vision Builder, and if you go to visionbuilder.no for Norway, just one word, visionbuilder.no, you can contact Jan Erik Harldseth. He's an optometrist who wrote the software. It's a really neat program. The balls fall, you just hit the space bar. the timing and the time lags, latencies are very, very short. So it's a pretty good measure of that. What are all the key parameters to be considered when testing visual parameters with athletes? I think I've actually, and I think that's Gautam, sorry if I'm not saying your name correctly, but I think I've gone over them. First of all, anytime somebody says, what are all, it's like, there's just no way I could give you everything and quantify it in a relatively short period of time. But I think I've given you the main things to look at. What are the different tests to check peripheral field? Oh, there's lots. I'm thinking more of the kinds of things we do in vision therapy to help improve it. Simple things like reading off a chart and moving two flashlights independently of the central task to the things we do. I'm very much enjoying some of the work with the Melbourne Rapid Fields, so that we don't have to buy a big fields apparatus, that we can do it on a tablet. We can do it on a home-based thing, and reach behind me and show you. We're about to come out with, this is the Pico virtual reality setup, and I've been testing lately and have an article about to come out, and I have no financial interest in it. I'm just doing research for the company. The visual fields in VR is amazing. You don't have a patch on, you feel like you're wide open. We can test both eyes simultaneously because it's completely independent. A spot can come on here, a spot, you don't know which eye is being tested. You're just responding if you see the light come on, and we can get that. It feels much more dynamic. And we will be doing functional fields, not just the typical field, but more like a light is moving in, hit a button when you see it, and we can plot with different types of targets. We can go from non-seeing to seeing and seeing to non-seeing to look at some of these dynamic visual fields. So those are some of the kinds of things we're looking at. What is post-vision syndrome in sports or PTVS? Well, I think I mentioned that most of the time we're looking at mild traumatic brain injury, mild concussion, but also whiplash can occur that can be profoundly drop the performance of an athlete. And we need to look at that and not just think it's a bump on the head or something like that. This is important for us to look at. We do know that things like the King-Devick-Saccades test have now been validated as a return to play instrument. We do this with a lot of our teams. We get baselines. I do it with our baseball. I do it. We just did it on 100 football players, and that's American football at one of our local universities. You get a time, the best time you can on calling off all of the numbers on the 3 pages. And when you see a person in competition or in a practice and they bump their head, bring them to the side, run it again. If they're 4 seconds slower than their baseline time, they don't go back in, and that's to protect the athlete. So this is another way optometrists are working directly with athletes to keep them safe. I'm doing research as well in the introduction. I do a lot of work with electrodiagnostics, visually evoked potential, EOGs, ERGs. We're doing I did not come up with the idea. It was a pure science scientist who's electroencephalography work, but he has a physics background. He's got math chops, let's put it that way. And we're doing an analysis of the noise in a standard visual evoked potential to look at coming up with an objective measure of the degree or the amount of head injury. And starting this fall, I have a VP device at one of our local universities where I've just done baseline testing. If they see an injury, I will go in, we will run this, and we're going to do 50 fresh concussions and 50 controls. We're going to send them for the analysis. The person doing the analysis will not know if this is a concussed patient or not. And over the year, we'll separate them. And if we come close to 50, we separate them based on this test, we know absolutely we have something. We've done it already with 7 concussions and 25 controls, but to go to 50 and 50, that'll be neat. And watching them get better then on this through their therapy, to give them then a release to go back to full competition, I think that could be the future. Long-term goal, not to have to do a VEP, but to have an EEG cap that could be pulled on the sideline, run, take your iPhone or whatever, or Android phone, if not, you know, hit a button, run a 20-second thing, get numbers, have it come up with analysis and tell you, yes, they can go back in or no. That kind of thing, again, to protect the athlete and to watch what we're doing. All right, what tests should we perform for swimmers? Well, let's see if they can swim. No, okay, fine. 20 seconds, make sure they don't drown. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Exactly the same test we do with all members of the human race. I think that's more the fundamental thing I want to try to get across is we all have the tools. It's how we apply them to the people we are working with in sport. Are we just going to see visual acuity as a measure of high spatial frequency detail seated in it? Or are we going to see it as maybe get somebody up and moving while they're doing visual acuity and see what that challenge is and how we can use it? So I wouldn't treat a swimmer any different than, now I might with a swimmer really want to make sure that particularly with the flip turns, that when they do a movement like that, they don't get lost. There's not a vestibular ocular reflex, a benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, a BPPV. Make sure that's clear. Make sure how quickly after the flip turn are they absolutely locked in on their goal, where they're going. Are they staying in their lane? Are they moving too close to the court? Do they need to do that? And on a backstroke, are they using the visual clues of the ceiling? There is a line up that tells them when they're coming towards the end of the pool, when they're doing a backstroke, as they're doing that, so that they can gauge the stroke and the flip turn and that type of thing. So I really try to customize my case history with things as we go through that. All right. What are the basic things to be considered for a badminton player? It's exactly the same kind of thing. Badminton player using contact lenses. Look, contact lenses are absolutely wonderful. They allow the optics to move with us. We don't get the peripheral distortions that you would get with lenses with the head movement or coming here. And those peripheral distortions do distort space, but people certainly learn how to use those and they're consistent over time. So the critical thing would be whatever optical setup the person has is that they practice with what they're going to be performing. That's really critical. So if they wear street glasses most of the time, but they're going to perform with contact lenses, make sure those contacts are on for all practices in the sport and what they're doing. Have them on for at least a half hour before the beginning of practice, before the beginning of a competition, so they stabilize. If you're a contact lens fitter, making sure we have ones that are stable on the cornea with extreme eye movements, I think is very important as we're going through things. I do want to thank Fakhruddin and the online optometry learning series for the opportunity to share with you. It's always nice to see new faces, but it's nice to see people I know like Stanley Tien. Thank you for being there. And Anna, I know you're having trouble with your camera. It would be nice to see you as well. So Fakhruddin, I will turn it back over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Prof. I think you did all the job. I didn't have to come in Q&A. My part is to ask you questions and then, take the input from you. I think you took over my job, and that made my life much more easier, I would say. And
you are welcome.
so thank you so much. And I think the most important point which you said, as as a primary practitioner, primary optometrist, eye care practitioner, when it comes to sports vision, I think it's really important to understand the sports as well. What you're treating, like one of the eye opener for me, to be very honest, when you said about the swimmers, when they do the backstroke, there is some line on the top. To be honest, I didn't know that exists, and that's really something important which we can tell our patients, that there are certain clues which they can use and go about performing better. So thank you so much for highlighting that for us.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think that talks to the point of knowing your sport. It is really critical to get a sense of it. But I think watching sports is helpful. But look, there are so many sports where I have had to let the athlete teach me about the sport.
Yeah.
And then I could figure out how to help them best. From shooting to race car driving to whatever it is, don't make an assumption that you know the sport based on watching. Or even if you played at a very basic level, don't think, I know this sport. There are all kinds of really interesting things that athletes do that is you just don't get, like the basketball, looking at the body, right? It wasn't until I started working with some very high-level players, and yes, they were tall. I don't mean high that way, but I mean very, very good players, that some of the stuff of, well, watch the player, was wrong. Looking at the torso, that kind of thing. Even the discussion, high level in basketball, where should a player look just before they shoot? Mm-hmm. There's differences in opinion. And some people make looking at the rim work, and some people make looking in the space above the rim work. Mm-hmm. If a player says, I don't know, I teach looking at the rim, and I have a lot of success. But I know another optometrist, very, very successful, who says to look at the spot directly above the opening. I find that hard to find. I can look and see the rim that's looking at me, and I can go over the rim, but trying to find that empty space, I think, is harder. So we each have our own teaching methods, and we've been able to make them work with our players. So there's not always one right way to do things, but listen, observe, and watch human performance. That's the test of vision. And what a wonderful profession we're part of.
That's great. And as you said, athletes might be having their own tricks and, all of that thing. So you would probably play a role to work them out according to what will be the best visual way or visual performance according to that tricks, right? Yeah.
Yes. I look at what we all do. I hope you're familiar with like playing Sherlock Holmes, right? Mm-hmm. Sherlock Holmes. We're problem solvers. What's the issue here? What's causing the difficulty? If we can discover that and we can help the player come to a more natural way to do it and take in the visual space, they're going to perform better.
All right. So with that, thank you so much, Prof, once again for taking up this early Sunday morning and doing the session for us.
You are welcome.
Yeah.
And again, happy Independence Day to those from India.
Thank you. Most welcome. Yeah, having those questions. But I just want to remind everyone that we do have a session planned next weekend. This session is based on skills for lifelong learning. It's on the same time as of today. And if you wish to join, the next announcement, just mark your calendars, because OOLS with Vision Science Academy is going to celebrate the World Sight Day 2021, which falls on the 14th October. And we have, come together and put up a e-symposium. It's going to be a 4-hour symposium. The primary aim is to get optometrists aware about primary eye care. So it's everything revolving around primary eye care. So more details will follow, but just mark your calendars, and the time would be 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. British Standard Time. So thank you everyone for joining in today. Take care, be safe. Thank you, Prof. Once again from the entire team OOLS and also the attendees. Take care everyone, be safe, and I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.